Ukraine arms for war, Putin in shock. Mega weapons, new drones, and allies turned against Moscow. The sky is about to change, and Putin can feel it. Ukraine is being armed like never before. Frontline fighters, attack and transport helicopters, swarms of sea and strike drones, a lethal arsenal stacking up faster than Moscow can react. Imagine dozens of modern fighters in Ukrainian hangars, missiles guided by Western crews, and naval killer drones prowl in the Black Sea. The Kremlin is in full panic mode. Commanders are shouting propaganda phrase at the edges, and the dictator's circle is scrambling for answers as Allied pressure tightens, sanctions, gas cutoffs, and unprecedented military aid. This isn't preparation, it's a rewrite of the rules. The balance of power is tipping. Will this be turning point? Let's talk about it. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. I'm Maria Farafonova, and here are the latest news. Sweden is stepping onto the stage with a massive military boost for Ukraine. Stockholm is discussing a potential deal to supply up to 120 cutting-edge Swedish Gripen E fighter jets, a move that would mark the largest export agreement in the history of this aircraft's production. This landmark deal could reshape the balance of power in the skies and give Ukraine a decisive technological edge over the aggressor.
We have begun the process for Ukraine to acquire Gripen fighter jets, and we expect that future contracts will allow us to obtain no fewer than 100 of these aircraft.
The JAS-39 Gripen E fighter, developed by Saab, is a multiple platform designed for air, ground, and maritime operations. Thanks to its high agility, low operating costs, and ability to adapt to demanding environments, it's widely regarded as one of the most effective aircraft in its class. And Russia will pay for these fighters with its own frozen assets. This was announced by the country's defense minister, Paul Johnson. According to him, such a deal is possible and several options are being considered.
We are considering the possibility of using frozen Russian assets.
One such fighter costs about $85 million, so an order for 100 aircraft would amount to roughly $8.5 billion. The issue of using Russia's frozen assets has long been under discussion within the EU.
Ahead of this week's EU summit, there is a chance that the Union's leaders will reach an agreement on this issue, especially given that the main opponent, Viktor Orban of Hungary, will not be present.
Ukraine has officially launched the procurement of Bell AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters and UH-1Y Venom transport helicopters. The process began with the signing of a letter of intent between the Ukrainian government and Bell. This marks another major step in strengthening Ukraine's air power and a signal that Kyiv is rapidly building a new generation of aviation capable of striking and maneuvering with deadly precision.
This initiative has been in development for some time, and we look forward to its completion.
According to the company, the agreement provides for an assessment of industrial cooperation approaches as well as collaboration between Bell and the US government, with the goal of arranging the sale through the Foreign Military Sales Program. The AH-1Z Viper and UH-1Y Venom are deep latest generation upgrades of the legendary AH-1 Cobra and UH-1 Iraqis helicopters, the latter being an icon of the Vietnam era. From the standpoint of urgently replacing the Soviet-era Mi-24 and Mi-8 pair, Bell's helicopters are likewise viewed as a complementary pair. They share about 85% common parts, which dramatically simplifies maintenance and logistics. Any cooperation with Bell should also be seen as a potential opportunity to establish its production facilities in Ukraine, assets that would undoubtedly be fully utilized over the very long term. How these superfighters could reshape the course of the war and what that means for Ukraine will explain in the report ahead.
One of the largest and most popular Russian Telegram channels, Diva Mayora, with an audience of over 1 million subscribers, reposted news about Ukraine purchasing combat and transport helicopters.
We're talking about the Viper and the Venom. The manufacturer Bell Textron announced the signing of a memorandum of intent to develop cooperation with Ukraine. An agreement was signed to assess approaches to industrial cooperation as part of a potential helicopter purchase, AH-1Z and UH-1Y. The Venom is a transport helicopter, while the Viper is an attack helicopter that carries Hellfires. Both of them can use 70mm rockets, which basically means APKWS. And the Venom can be equipped with a minigun. And recalling American practices, Ukraine can use these helicopters to shoot down drones like the Geran.
The interest of Russian media in the purchase of such helicopters suggests that the Kremlin understands that with the appearance of these birds in Ukrainian skies, the air defense system will become much more effective in the fight against Shahed strike drones. Attack helicopters? Bell helicopters are being purchased to replace the outdated Mi-24 and Mi-8, which have long outlived their service life. 85% of the parts in the Viper and Venom are identical, which means maintenance is cheap and simple. The Viper was created during the Vietnam War, back in 1965. And already in the 2000s, it received new engines and a rotor, upgraded avionics, a fire control system, comprehensive survivability improvements, and extensive digitalization. In terms of capabilities, the Viper is almost on par with the best attack helicopter in the world, the Apache.
The Apache is objectively more powerful since it's a machine with a maximum takeoff weight of 14 tons compared to 8.4 tons. The Apache's combat radius, 300 kilometers, while the Viper's is 243 kilometers. Also, the Apache's main armament is more numerous, up to 16 AGM-114 Hellfires compared to 8 on the Viper. But the typical combat loadout on the Apache is quite similar. The Viper carries 8 Hellfires and 2 pods of 70mm unguided Hydra rockets. As for automatic cannons, it's 30mm versus 20mm.
An agreement has already been signed regarding the evaluation of approaches to industrial cooperation within the framework of purchasing Viper and Venom helicopters.
We are proud to announce this agreement and the possibility of delivering these incredible helicopters to Ukraine. This initiative has been in development for some time and we look forward to its completion. Jeffrey Schlosser, Senior Vice President of Bell.
In addition to the procurement of transport and attack helicopters, Ukraine will soon receive another batch of F-16 fighter jets. The Belgian Minister of Defense stated that as early as the beginning of 2026, the new birds will enter service in Ukraine immediately after Belgium receives its new F-35s.
We continue to receive deliveries according to schedule. The first 3 F-35s, not 4, have already arrived. Now they need to become operational. I think this will take a year or a year and a half. Once we have operational capability, we will be able to transfer our F-16S to Ukraine. This is a very important phase. I always explain this to the Ukrainians. As soon as we are able, we will transfer them. However, don't forget that our country has DCA capabilities and plays an important role in NATO's nuclear deterrence policy. This is the cornerstone of our doctrine. Theo Franken, Minister of Defense of Belgium.
This year, Ukraine received 2 F-16S from Belgium for spare parts. According to the security agreement between Ukraine and Belgium, the latter is to deliver 30 F-16 fighter jets by 2028. As of June 2025, Ukraine has already received more than 40 F-16s from its allies.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
The sea just turned deadly. Ukraine has unleashed 9 types of Barracuda naval drones, from missile-carrying platforms to one-ton kamikaze monsters. Coastal defenses, logistics hubs and warships suddenly face a new brutal threat: stealthy swarms that can punch holes in ports and sink the invaders' supply lines. This is naval warfare written, and for the occupier, it's a waking nightmare. They can be grouped into 4 types. The first group is the standard models, the second is built on the jet ski platform, the third is a larger variant likely based on water ski towboards, and the fourth group consists of a single craft, a bigger, longer-ranged, more powerful boat. The Barracuda naval drone series is being developed by the American-European company 2Dev AI Tech in cooperation with its Ukrainian namesake division. According to the company, these drones are intended not only for coastal defense, but also for long-range strikes, for example, against ports in occupied Sevastopol and Novorossiysk. So far, however, they have only been observed operating on the Dnipro River and its delta. Ukraine's naval drone industry keeps gaining momentum, and Ukrainian unmanned systems remain among the global leaders. The Security Service of Ukraine has unveiled a new generation of Sea Baby maritime drones, the very same models that took part in several high-profile operations in the Black Sea, including the strike on the Crimean breach. These upgraded Sea Babies promise even greater range, payload and precision, a nightmare for the Russian fleets that already learned to fear their name.
Our drones have changed the balance of power in the Black Sea and have proven their effectiveness. The new generation of Sea Baby drones is even more advanced. The work to cleanse the Black Sea of the Russian fleet will continue. The enemy will feel the full force of our technological innovations.
The new variants feature upgraded engines and modern navigation systems. They can cover over 1,500 kilometers and carry up to 2 tons of payload. The CBU developers unveiled 2 types, one equipped with a gyro-stabilized auto-aiming machine gun mount, and the other fitted with Grad-style multiple rocket salvo system.
The SBU is the architect of a new kind of maritime warfare. We are constantly seeking effective means to preserve Ukraine's advantage in the Black Sea for as long as possible. President Volodymyr Zelensky's task is to neutralize the powerful Russian Black Sea Fleet. We are actively working on that.
The agency also noted that it continues to develop new types of weapons already being used in operations through details remain classified. Thanks to maritime drones, Russia was forced to withdraw most of its ships to Novorossiysk, which allowed Ukraine to reopen the grain corridor. Europe stands firm, united in its determination to back Ukraine and unleash another wave of crippling strikes against the Kremlin. The goal is unmistakable: to choke Putin's regime into submission, if not by firepower, then by economic collapse. This Thursday, the EU is set to approve its 19th sanctions package as member states move toward a total embargo on Russian gas and sweeping action on frozen Russian assets. One by one, the Kremlin's last financial veins are being severed, and time for Moscow is running out. All the breaking details in our report.
Europe is demonstrating resolve. 3 major decisions are coming very soon: a new package of sanctions, a rejection of Russian oil and gas, and even the use of Russian assets. The EU is tightening pressure on Russia, knowing that the terrorist state only responds to force.
We are seeing Trump's efforts to establish peace in Ukraine. Of course, all these efforts are welcome, but we do not see Russia truly striving for peace. Russia only understands force and negotiates only when it is truly compelled to do so. That is why, of course, we are discussing what else we can do.
The new package of sanctions in the EU will be approved as early as Thursday, October 23rd. This is the conviction of the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas. The package will differ from the previous ones. The restrictions will affect 3 key areas at once: energy, financial services, and trade. The change in approach to sanctions was already mentioned at the beginning of October by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. According to her, the EU will no longer propose phased sanctions, but instead wants tougher measures. However, quick results should not be expected. The new restrictions are designed for the long term.
It cannot be said that the 19th package of sanctions, which is still expected to be adopted this week, is truly groundbreaking, since a number of its provisions are delayed in effect. Well, for example, the refusal of Russian LNG starting from 2027. And we have to understand we are now in October 2025. Accordingly, there is still more than a year of transition period left.
Things did not go smoothly with this package. The main obstacle, unexpectedly enough, turned out to be Austria. Vienna had previously refused to agree to new restrictions unless the European Union unlocked part of the Russian assets to compensate Austria's Raiffeisenbank for fines imposed by a Russian court. But no one supported Austria's demands, and the Austrians radically changed their position. Surprisingly, even Hungary is not planning to block the new package.
We have no plans to block it. We managed to remove all measures that would contradict our national interests.
Trump's actions, his successes in the Middle East, all of this creates an additional political backdrop and a certain incentive for some opponents within the EU itself to, well, talk less about blocking anti-Russian sanctions. For example, we can see that Hungary has ultimately given in, but obviously there are also the direct relations between Orban and Trump.
However, while Hungary did not block the 19th package of sanctions, it did try to influence the decision to abandon Russian gas and oil. Slovakia did the same. The day before, the EU Council supported the complete abandonment by the European Union of Russian fossil fuels. The decision was supported by an overwhelming majority of votes, but not Hungary and Slovakia. However, their vote was not that important.
Fundamental decisions must be made by unanimous agreement, meaning, yes, by all 27 members of the European Union. But for a number of specific issues, a qualified majority is considered sufficient. That is 55% of EU member states in the European Union, representing more than 65% of the EU population. Therefore, in this case, we understand that a number of issues are still being shifted to the level of a qualified majority.
The proposal in question provides for a legally binding ban on any imports of gas from Russia, including liquefied natural gas, after January 1st, 2028. At the same time, imports of new gas from Russia will be prohibited starting January 1st, 2026. However, for existing contracts, a transition period is provided. Short-term contracts until June 2026 and long-term contracts until the beginning of 2028. The EU Council, as we have already mentioned, supported the proposal despite 2 obstacles. Now the matter is up to the European Parliament. It must approve the document. But these are not the only blows to the economy of the aggressor country. In addition to future revenues, Europe also plans to seize the Kremlin's current funds. We are talking about frozen Russian assets. Part of this money is planned to be used to provide Ukraine with a loan.
This is not about confiscation. In other words, they are working out a way that would allow the use of the principal of these assets, but at the same time not confiscate them. So if or when the Russian Federation pays reparations to Ukraine, access to these very assets will then be restored.
According to Western publications, work on this issue intensified after the talks between Trump and Zelensky on October 17th. Allegedly, the president of Ukraine was pressured by the American leader. And it seems that the EU has decided to become more assertive so that they too are taken into account. Already this week, politicians will try to reach an agreement on the use of frozen Russian assets.
They will definitely discuss it. I don't expect a decision just yet, since there is still time according to previous agreements. But it's clear that for the budget years 2026 and 2027, it will be necessary to adopt serious consolidated options. And we fully understand that at this point in time, the West simply has no other choice but to go down the path of a reparations loan for Ukraine, because the funding required is truly extraordinarily large.
Whether European politicians will be able to reach an agreement remains an open question. But Europe's determination in its recent actions gives hope. The EU is not going to unquestioningly listen to Trump, but is ready to provide help and take action.
What do you think about the latest events? Share your opinion in the comments, like the video, and stay informed about the main headlines. More to come.